Thank you, everyone, for attending the Employment First OPRA meeting today. Got a few people in the room here today, and I think 5 people online. So we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves here in person, and then we'll have people online read their names off too. So, Lisa.
Okay, so Lisa Mathis with OPRA.
Holly Shellog with the Licking County Board.
I'm Justin Blumhorst, Capabilities.
Christine Tubble with OPRA. I'm going to unmute everybody since we have a pretty small group, so if you have something to say, you can go ahead and say it, but if you do have background noise, we ask you to mute yourself until you have something you'd like to contribute.
Sure. Anybody wants to introduce themselves, you can jump on right now. Go ahead.
Shy group.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah. Christine, why don't you go ahead and read off?
We have Bob Gaston, Emily H., Jenna Allen, Jessica Garrett, Laura Rex, and Susan Falk. So.
Great.
Oh, Susan says, I don't have a microphone.
Okay. Yeah. So if you don't, you're welcome to chat in, or use the chat box to type in questions too. So.
Great. Yes, we've got Jay and Jessica from OPRA, not from OPRA, from OOD here today. So thank you guys very much for coming with the Provider Relations group. So we're very interested in hearing kind of more about you guys, and it's been a very good experience with I think the new group now too. So thank you guys for coming, and take it from there.
Well, thank you for having us. I'm Jay Burns, and I'm here with Jessica Folsom. We are part of the Provider and Contract Management Unit. You guys might start seeing that unit name more and more as communication comes out through the Granicus system. Our unit's pretty new, but we're not reinventing the wheel. We are taking on some responsibilities that were under the Policy and Training Unit, and we're working with Jim Gears, who used to be under that unit. There's been so much exciting things happening with new providers and provider support and training that we now have a unit. So the core concept of this is that for the support that Jim Gears would provide technical guidance, training, responding to the CRP vendor mailbox, getting new providers into the system of PMP, that we now have a unit of gyms for shorthand. So the idea would be that we would have 4 gyms, 1 for each of the 4 previous areas, and all responding to the CRP vendor mailbox. So Jim is amazing, and we're not all going to become gyms overnight, but the idea is that we would provide the support that Jim does so that we could provide quicker customer service, maybe be available more locally than Jim could be as one person. And then we're also excited about other ways we can support providers in terms of developing training and tools for providers. But our goal is like better customer service and support for providers so that we all want the same thing. We're working in partnership for our participants. So we're really excited about a few things coming down the pipeline. Our unit also does support contracts. So we have a few kinds of contracts. We've got case management contracts, and then we also have what we call MOU contracts, which it's an OOD counselor that works the caseload in partnership with, for example, mental health agency or a DD board. So we've got anything else?
No, I think that's the core of what we do.
Okay. So some of the things that we've done so far is we put together and we posted a provider training on job-related services. So one of the questions I ask myself a lot is, if I was a provider, ... So if I was a provider and this new policy is coming, or this, change to a policy, what would I want to know? How would I want to make sure I'm working in partnership with OD and I understand what's needed and I feel supported and on top of things and like there's really good communication? So that is one example of the kind of thing we hope to do. Is we had internal training for our staff, and we promised providers. There were some questions that providers had. They were really good questions, and they're like, we want to know more. We want to move in lockstep with you on this. So we said, we're going to give you a training, and we're going to make sure you guys are working with us and you know what we know as we work together. We also are working on some different provider training modules. We put out a survey, and we have one more week of the survey to say, what would help you? So we don't want to just say, this is what we imagine you guys would want, and then maybe it's something you don't want or need and don't use. We want to make sure it's something that our providers would find useful and be a valuable tool. So we put together some proposed topics based on working with providers, and we want to help providers with some of the pain points to make life easier. And it's hard to have new staff. Like, we have new staff, and it takes a lot to train and develop people. We know providers, you know, it's sort of the circle of life that you'll always have new staff and be developing people, and you might grow and have new people. And so we are sort of asking people in the survey, how are you currently training your people right now? What support would you want for us? If we did put together these modules, what's most interesting to you? What do you feel like that would be something that's valuable? So like some of the topics we're looking at, for example, is for someone that's just starting to be a provider, you know, just a nice information in the beginning of like, what does that look like? How does the payment process work? What are the services? And everything down to maybe like ethics and confidentiality. What makes job development successful? And then one of the things we hear, and I think was sort of more popular and sort of the most in demand of these, is report writing and templates. We want to make that easier for our providers. We don't want our providers to be in a cycle of submitting things and missing a document, or not understanding how to complete a form, and then having that denied. So this is one that we've had the most interest in, I would say.
Yeah, I would say the report writing has been one that's been requested a lot. I've also seen a lot for the job development and on-the-job supports, just some more information, I think, from what OOD's expectations are. I would say those have been the top three, but definitely like just an overview of the fee schedule was requested. There was a few requests for the resume specifically. And I would say like some of the other topics we've put on there, they've all been high requested, but then those are kind of the middle of the road, the other topics that you'll see when you take the survey.
So we're still looking for feedback, and we still have the survey open until the end of the week that went out through Granicus. And then we also are looking at other modules that might be specific to certain populations, for example, like supported employment, through both you know, for mental health and people with developmental disabilities, to support employment models, also for people that are visually impaired or blind, and participants who are deaf of hard of hearing. So if you have a new staff person and maybe they're working with a certain population they haven't worked with before, where could they maybe go and maybe for an hour, and probably not more than 2 hours, just get a whole download of information and tips and just something that would be useful for providers. So those are some of the projects we work on, and we respond to the mailbox, we get people started, we work with our contractors, and we are just looking for different ways we can support the providers.
So with that training or the modules, you're not saying that would be mandatory for staff to take it, but this is an additional training tool for providers to use? Right
now, we're just looking at it as a toolbox.
Okay, cool.
So we would RFP this out. Like we have some great subject matter experts, but like we necessarily aren't experts in putting together a video or training and making it interactive and engaging. We're looking at it as like a toolbox. So if you have a new person, if you've got someone that wants technical assistance, for a new provider, there's a lot of things people ask us about, just the credentials they need or the payment process. So that's what this is envisioned as.
Okay. Cool. Great.
If someone is interested in becoming a new provider right now, even though the toolkit is still in development, what would be their first step?
There is some information on the web page, because there's a few sort of front doors to go through, as far as if someone's CARF accredited already, or if someone wants to get a waiver, which we just look at waivers 4 times a year quarterly. So they could go through that website. They could email the CRP vendor email box to get started. And they could also have a conversation with someone on our team, but we think it'd be really nice if people could just have a resource, just get a lot of information all at once. anything you'd say about that?
No, yeah, they're definitely welcome, any new providers, to contact the CRP vendor mailbox. I've reached out to a few recently that have emailed, and a lot of the questions are about the requirements, like CARB, like just becoming a provider in general. That's kind of people's first thought process, but then when you start thinking about it, then you're like, well, I direct them to the fee schedule to make sure they know what what they're actually providing, because sometimes they're not entirely sure what OOD services are. And then kind of once you get past that step, then they have no clue on like the billing aspect. So you really have like, once you start thinking more in depth, you kind of go down these wormholes that you really don't have time to sit and talk to someone, you know, right away every day. Here's 1 hour to talk just about. So we thought this training module would kind of be a good first step. So if someone says, hey, I want to be a vendor, you can have this like very high level overview. Okay, am I CARFR waiver? What services do I want to provide? How's this billing process going to work? And then at the end of that, are you still interested? You know, here's how you can like contact us to become a provider.
Just out of curiosity, are people that are wanting to be providers, are they currently providers, like providing maybe day services somewhere, or voc rehab, or, you know, something like that?
I've seen a lot of DODD providers wanting to also be OOD providers.
Okay.
But I've also seen some, I'm assuming they're like a break off, maybe an employee has left and they just want to get the whole thing started.
Oh.
So I've seen both.
Okay.
Where they're not currently, the entity is not currently providing services, and I've also seen where they're currently providing DODD services.
Okay. Do you have a limit, or you just?
We don't have a limit, and we can't guarantee referrals to any provider, so that would be part of the training. Sometimes what I say to people is, you might want to have a conversation with your local office and see what the need is, because there's some counties, they really need providers. They might need the certain service they don't have. So, but then there are other counties where there might be 20 or 30 providers.
Right.
So I think that's a good question.
How many new providers are you guys seeing on like a month or quarterly basis?
Goodness, I'm so new to this. I don't want to say anything offhand. I've only been doing this for a few months, and I would say there's probably maybe one a week right now. I mean, that's statewide. I wouldn't say consistently, but I would say that's what I've seen so far.
Yeah, Jim Gears has said there's always like a high tide and a low tide, but in these past 4 months, there's been a big volume of inquiries. Like, we're looking at this kind of video as one of our next priorities. We're not going to give you a date, but we're looking at that as one of our next priorities, because we want to give people a lot of information that they can process and make considerations of, you know, is this for them? Do they have the qualifications? Where do they start? And just a real good resource for people, so that when they do have a conversation with us, they've already gotten some background.
I think we're also seeing, I think it's a good tool. We have some providers too who maybe have changed leadership that don't entirely know what providing OOD services are for too. So I think that video or this training would also be good for that, because a lot of times they're kind of starting from scratch, learning the process. So I think it's a good tool for that as well, because there are, especially some of the smaller providers that have changed hands, they really don't know where to get started if there's been a lot of staff turnover.
Yeah. No, for our training, we had to balance for the new staff, and then also for the staff who have been there for a while too, to kind of give them more advanced and kind of give them different things too. So, or you guys plan on doing a balance of the training modules for that, or?
Yeah, we have, the way we have these groups is sort of actually in that same kind of mindset, getting started, the foundational pieces, then some of the more beyond the basics, and then like program specific. So you could have had someone that was a job developer for 5 years, and they had not initially worked with someone who's deaf or hard of hearing, or maybe they hadn't worked with the supported employment partnership. So we would like that. We would like these to be valuable to new people coming in the door, and then someone that's currently here, they'd be able to get something out of it.
Yeah.
Do you work closely with DODD then when it comes to, wow, I think I just broke the table. Wow, you online couldn't see that, but a piece of the table just fell off while I was talking. I don't know. High quality furniture here, nothing but the best. So I know if they're I guess what you would call employment first, what we call employment first provider anyhow, so they're not necessarily CARF accredited. I know they have a lot of training materials out there on the Ohio Employment First website, so maybe it's a matter of coordinating what you are making with what they have. And
that's definitely something that is something we look at. And I did the Employment First training because when I was a supervisor in the field, we worked with Employment First and some amazing county boards. So that is something that's interesting to us as like a model of what's already out there and valuable, because they talk about, person-centered training, person-centered planning. They talk about like job development and getting the relationships in the community and how that's important. And there's so many good pieces of that. There's also DODD training that they have like sort of 10 modules, I think are like 1 hour, a piece. I think that's something I've looked at like, oh, that seems like digestible, that seems manageable. And they also have a video about like, it's sort of like, so you want to be a DODD provider, here's some things you just want to get to know. So we'd like to have that sort of introductory, the new provider training we were talking about.
And I know, I thought when I talked to Stacy Collins last from DODD that she was mentioning that they had someone looking at all the training modules they have out there to see if they've got all the different topics that someone might need to review for the CESP.
Oh, okay.
So that might be something that, you might want to reach out to them to make sure you're not duplicating any work.
I like that. I think that's important. That part of why we want to do the survey is so that we understand what our providers need, and we also are asking them what are resources you're currently using, because we're not afraid to stand on the shoulders of giants or refer people to a tool that already exists.
Right, yeah, makes sense.
So
resources all across the board, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, for when you guys are hiring the people who do the work incentives planning in-house and also the job developers in-house, I guess, what do you use to base that upon hiring those people? I've heard like a demand, there's like a demand for a provider or demand for that service for that, or?
We wouldn't hire them within our department.
Okay.
That would be like human resources would work with like a field supervisor so that you're talking about the caseload assistants that do either job development or the work incentives planning. Yeah, I think I couldn't speak to that, to be honest. I wouldn't want to misspeak.
Okay. So I'm curious, because I see some opening, and I'm like, well, we have a lot of providers in that area, so I'm just wondering why they might be hiring that, or what the idea is behind that. So it's a question I have in general. What the proof is of that demand, or why they need to have that. So.
Yeah, that would be interesting, because is that just a matter of getting it out to the providers to know, hey, we could use some more, in
a certain area, yeah.
Yeah, we need more job development in this area if you're available. If you serve that area. But
yeah, we can definitely speak to our employer innovation department and sort of that sort of falls under their umbrella. Okay. So I don't want to speak on that.
Yeah, I got you.
And it could be that they do it for a reason that we don't know, but it's interesting.
That's a good question.
Yeah, but I think just when you see it come out, you're like, oh, why's that happening? So it's just when it comes up and stuff like that comes out, we're just kind of question it. But it'd be awesome if we could see why exactly would help.
No, that's a really good question.
Yeah. Now, as far as with the shutdown of getting payments and everything, there was like a 2-week shutdown period that just came through. And I've noticed, I think when it's in preparation for the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're clearing out stuff. We've noticed there's a big back payment of all the payments coming out. Is that going to be kind of catching up soon? Or?
It should. So OOD, when we release payment, that payment goes through Ohio Shared Services.
Yeah.
So like OOD doesn't write you a check, it comes from the state of Ohio. So they're the ones that shut down to clean up their books fiscally for the state year. So I'm assuming when they reopen, you're just seeing that catch up.
Yeah.
It happens every year.
Mm-hmm.
We encourage our staff, our finance department sends out emails quite frequently before that happens to try to get as much cleaned out as we can. So A, providers have money coming in, and then B, so hopefully this like backlog catch up of payments is not as great as if we didn't try to get cleaned up. So my assumption, not knowing what shared services does, is that should be clearing out once they're like back up and running.
Okay. Yeah. So notice it's been small chunks.
Yeah, because we actually still process it on our end.
Okay.
Like our counselors continue to release payments during that time. It's just once those payments get sent to shared services, they don't write the checks for that time.
Okay.
So work on our end doesn't stop. Like at OOD with payments, with putting payments in our system, with releasing them, it's all getting stopped at shared services.
Okay. Great.
So how they like then decide we're reopen, we're gonna like chunk out this batch. I can't
I got it.
speak a ton to, but it is continuing to being processed on our end.
Okay. I don't know if you guys have any feedback to shared service or offer any to them, but I think when it came off of it this year, you had to re-sign up to get those remittance sheets.
It's for the OHID?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there wasn't very much communication from them ahead of time.
Yeah.
I've heard that, and we've had that discussion internally, and we have someone in our finance department who's had conversations with them to say, how was this messaged out? We wanted to check with you about it. And some providers have reached out to us, not a high volume,
Okay.
but I wish that communication would have felt clear to people.
Yeah.
And I wish that, my understanding, not being on the provider side, is that even once you signed up, it took 5 or 7 days to get that. So obviously, like, we wish that would have been quicker.
Yeah. To be honest, it was a little bit of surprising to us because we started getting the questions,
Yeah.
and then we're having to go to shared services, and so we are trying to get some guidance together, I think, to make sure we understand it as well, because it was a little shocking to us.
Yeah, 'cause we made this is on us too. We forgot to put in our corporate address 144 North Front Street, and we just put Front Street in, so that's to wait it out another 5 days.
Oh no.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been interesting, and he's kind of pulling his hair out a little bit, honestly.
Let it the music.
Yeah.
Does someone online have something to say? We're hearing some feedback. Do you guys have a question?
I have an echo.
Maybe.
No questions? Anybody online? Do you have questions you would like to ask?
Great. Well, thank you for passing that on to them and working with them. I really appreciate that because.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the delays and frustration. It was a surprise to us as well. And we know that you guys want to stay on top of your billings, and that was sort of like a surprise delay for you.
Yeah. So that's great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Jay or Jessica?
I'm gonna mute
everybody.
everybody.
It's just like the unending
Yes.
echo.
We muted everybody, so if you have a question, please type it into the chat box.
Right. On some other notes too, I do really appreciate the new the way you guys are putting out information to get requests for feedback. I know Lisa and I were talking about that earlier. That's been really nice. We've had a few members actually really dive through things more than we thought they would, even too. So.
Like, what specifically have you liked? Like you're talking about, like, the survey for the.
Let me log in.
Yeah,
the survey for the training.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
So
certainly.
It was on policy.
This was a policy. Let me open up the.
Oh.
So we're gathering the
Okay.
responses from
Yeah.
OPRA members, and we'll get those all pulled together and then sending
We
to
love that because we want you all to feel like we're working together, it's a partnership, that we're communicating, and sometimes you guys even see things that we might not see from your point of view. We want to make sure we're move in lockstep. So we appreciate the thoughtful questions, any chance we have to clarify anything or think things through ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think specifically regarding a policy thing like that, I've never ever seen anything like that. So that was really,
if you go on the OOD website, and I think this is newer, it's got a tab under information that says notice of VR policy review.
Oh,
people
yeah.
can, the general public.
Yes, that is new.
Comment.
I'm glad you liked that.
yeah, that's been.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. I think my comment was, hey, we need to go through with a fine-tooth comb, get as much feedback as we can to this opportunity. So, yeah, really appreciate that.
Yeah, we definitely want your input.
I think, too, the new way I saw the Project Search and the request for coaches, too. I don't know if you guys are involved with that at all, but.
Was it like the form that the committee would use to evaluate, like, which provider would be chosen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It came out in a bigger email, I think.
I never saw that.
Yeah, I think basically we were in Athens. It was in the Athens County one that came out. So I don't know if it came to all providers or if it just came to the providers in that area. But however it was, I really liked it. And,
well, that's good feedback.
Cool.
That is a little bit more in another department that works with like post-secondary training and education, but I'll pass that on, that was appreciated.
Yeah, it's not just because I got selected for it either. That may help, but
Can you forward it to me? Because I don't remember seeing it.
Okay, yeah, for that one, yeah.
Susan has a question. She says, if you are managing the CRP vendor email box by multiple people, how long should we expect a response to take generally?
So the provider manual still says we typically try to respond within 3 days. And especially now, as I'm going through mine, at least I can speak to the work I'm doing. If I know it, I answer it as soon as I can. And I try to get in there every other day. But sometimes I have been responding like, I got your question, I have to talk to Jim or Jay. But we're still trying to work on the 72-hour turnaround that the fee schedule.
And some of the more complex things that are like an actual case, we might be working with a local supervisor that knows the details of the case, and sometimes we want to make sure we give you an accurate answer. So sometimes if it's taking longer than you were hoping, that might be why, is we want to give you an accurate answer.
So when questions come in, they get routed to whoever's area it is then? Is that how it works, or?
So there's one main mailbox, and then my team manually sorts that into like northwest, southwest, southeast, northeast.
Okay.
So anyone on my team, which is Jim Gears, Jessica Folsom, Mike Kinney, and Michelle Caswell, or myself could potentially respond. Okay,
got it. And then if a provider all right, so if they sit on kind of on a couple of different areas, then you go to wherever your corporate office is, that's who your contact should be, or does it matter, I guess? You go to the inbox and you guys figure it out from there.
So generally we've been trying to do where the provider is headquartered is what we ultimately want to do. But if there are some questions that, so I know you guys cover multiple area voc workers across the state. I've answered some questions if it comes from the local office supervisor, because we're trying to also maintain good relationships with them. Yeah. So I would say generally it's going to be where the provider is headquartered, but you could see some responses too from the other folks, depending if the local office brought it forward or Michelle's out and I'm covering hers. But I would say generally is where the provider is headquartered.
All right. Regarding the CARF certification, I sat through a training on a different kind of certification. What's the one that Boundless has, the certification they have? Do you know who it is?
The NQF?
Yeah, CQL training. Yeah, CQL training.
Yeah, Council of
Quality of Life Indicators. I don't know. It's CQL, but she mentioned that some other state VR agencies are offering that they can use CQL or CARF. And from talking with a lady who did the CQL training, they've kind of put some more things really specific to that. I don't know if that would be anything you guys would be interested in thinking about, because I was pretty interested in what they had to offer. Actually.
Council on Quality and Leadership?
Yeah, that sounds right. Because I have her contact information I can send on to you too. But it seemed like a interesting accreditation, and they do a lot of accreditation. It's a lot of feedback they get on getting focus groups together, even too, to help you advance your services, too. I don't know if it'd be anything that you guys might be interested in to say, hey, you got CARF or CQL to be a full provider or not, or?
I would definitely look at it if you want to send me any information. I can look up the website.
Okay.
We want to make sure our participants get great quality services. So if the CQL is a credential that is going to get them those services, then you would definitely look at that.
Okay.
And do you know if that's specific to
IDD?
IDD? Yeah. It kind of looked like from the page
Yeah, it very well might be. That might be the only piece, but I'm not certain. Though I don't know enough about it. I sat through not even a presentation. It seemed to at that time, but that was also a week-long training. So, oh great! I'll try to find that. I think they haven't released all the PowerPoints and everything from it. When I do, I'll forward it on for sure.
Might be a good one for the employment first providers if it is IDD specific.
It doesn't say, but they're sponsored by the Leadership Institute.
So it probably is IDD.
Probably is. And
Yeah.
they're saying DSP.
Yep. Yeah.
So I thought she said that for some agencies that said you had to have CARF accreditation, they have like a lineup that showed how the CARF and the CQL and how they're pretty similar, and how CQL even goes farther sometimes than what CARF does.
Less expensive or more expensive?
It was more expensive.
More expensive.
Yeah. But they did a good job of focusing on someone's entire life, though, too, and how you as an agency can really focus on moving them forward, too.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that looks like they're heavily in the United States, and then a couple in Australia, and then the United Kingdom, maybe.
Makes sense. Yeah.
All right.
Canada.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Jay or Jessica? As far as reaching out to you, not CPR, but the CRP vendor inbox is probably the best way to get a hold of you guys, though, right? So
Definitely. And part of the design of that is like Jim Gears had not taken a vacation in some time, and now that we have more of a team in place, he's been able to take a vacation, and we can still, answer some of the mailbox. So with this team approach, as the team gets, trained and we get developed, we hope to be able to support the providers even more.
yeah, it'll be interesting too, because I think Jim had being over the whole area too. He had an interesting way. Because Toledo one and the Southeast ones are a little bit different how they handle things sometimes. So it'll be interesting to see how you guys keep that consistency.
And I can tell you, prior to taking on the role of the provider management, Michelle and I did contract management for our case management providers. And so we had the same struggles with consistency because we each had one side of the state. And I will tell you, we still meet regularly to talk about how did you handle this situation or this question, just so if it came up on my end, I didn't just come up with my own feedback. We meet regularly to make sure we're answering things consistently, because we know how confusing it can be if you're getting different guidance or different feedback. So I think that's another reason why we wanted to maintain the CRP vendor mailbox, because we can see what's coming in and then how the other RPSs have responded. So it also cuts down some of my work to formulate a response. So we can kind of start using the same language and speak the same words to everyone too. So hopefully consistency is like one of our priorities too, statewide.
And I agree. I want to sort of piggyback on that and say we have a huge staff across the state. We're trying to help them be consistent. And when we sort of see a hot spot, sometimes we message out information to providers, say this is the current guidance because we want to make sure you understand. We're also doing a lot of messaging to our own staff when we see there's a hot spot, because we don't want you to get different answers in different directions. So we're working to also support our staff for more consistency.
Is there anything, any advice you give us for when we're putting the emails in there? Any way you want them worded or any?
Keep the questions really easy.
No, I mean, I've not had any problems to figure out. I will say I appreciate when people have a signature in their email, because then I can tell where agency they're from and then like where they're located. But other than that, you know, if you keep your question, like whatever you've been doing, we've had no problem sorting. It's when it's just like someone at Gmail, then it's a little hard to figure out who they are. But other than that, no changes to how you email us.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been able to sort through there pretty standardly.
Yeah. I've seen some people use like a ticketing system. There's always a plus and minus for using anything like that. I don't know if there's anything you guys have thought about doing at all, though. But.
No, because there's, I mean, I guess if we grew, if there was 20 of us, you know, maybe, but I think we've been able to maintain it with what we're at right now. So.
Okay. Well, great. Well, good. We'll try to keep the questions as easy as possible.
Yeah, we appreciate those ones.
I kid. Whatever's on your mind, you support with, don't hesitate.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks for coming, and I would, maybe we need to think about inviting you back maybe around the first of the year, because by then you'll have, you know, become more established in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And maybe have some more thoughts on the training and everything, and we will probably have a larger group.
We'd love to come back.
For you to present to.
Yeah, we've got some things going on. I think this group's going to grow a lot here in the next couple of months. So, yeah, once we get validation of that, we'll invite you back.
Great.
Great.
Good.
All right, well, we got a few other things, so I'll walk you guys out. But you guys will come back here in a little bit, in like 5 minutes. I'm back at it.
You know what? I can go ahead with the base camp stuff while you.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. All right. That way, everyone online can. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Good to have
Seeing you, Jay.
Hey, where's your second project search at?
You know the beauty park at between Albany and.
Can you
Is
share?
it like the mound?
Everybody online, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk about base camp for a minute.
Big, huge corporation in there.
Oh. Is it like by Target?
You're going,
let
when
me
you're going west on 16.
Yeah.
All that.
All the land?
That manufacturing
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it real creatively. We're just doing the rotation thing right in the building so much. And you're gonna actually come.
That's really cool. You always have lots of great things happening. So nice to see you.
You too, Jay. Good luck.
Okay. Is it showing my screen? No.
What are you guys gonna talk about?
We're going to talk about, we're going to talk a little bit about base camp, and then we're going to talk a little bit about upcoming meetings.
Okay. And you don't.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for coming, though.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Yeah, I know. Well, that's why we're going to have them back, though, because this will be changing. Yeah, summer's hard, and we know we've got a lot more members that are joining currently, and so they'll be on board for the next meeting.
Okay,
So.
cool.
All right. Everybody, I'm trying to share my screen. Let me see. But it's not coming up, is it? Oh.
No, it's.
Is it just not showing there? Wait a minute. Oh, wait.
It's because I have the way that.
Okay, but it is showing?
Yeah.
Oh, there, I see it. Okay, all right. Okay, so for everybody online, well, a couple things. Maybe first I should start with, let me check my notes here real quick. First of all, I know we had on the agenda that we would be going over the OPRA strategic plan today, but we have decided, hopefully you're all okay with this, but we have decided to send that out in a survey format, so you'll be seeing that come out sometime this week, and that will be coming out on the OPRA Base Camp. And for those of you that are new to Base Camp, I'm going to run through Base Camp here in just a minute. That's why you've got that on your screen. But so we'll be sending out the survey for the strategic plan. And then if you don't all know, I wanted to let you know that you may have heard of OAS and PSG, so the Ohio Association of Adult Services and the Privatization Support Group. those groups are disbanding very soon, and many of those members, I think you'll find, will be joining OPRA. And so we're going to be making some changes to the OPRA employment and day services committees to help, I think, well, first of all, we're going to have more people on the committees. And so we sent out a survey, and probably many of you saw it, asking some questions about topics you'd like to see us addressed during these meetings, and also maybe some changes of times and dates. And so stay tuned, because I'll be sending that out, and I'll be sending it out in Basecamp, some changes for the future meetings, for even the August, possibly the August, but the September meetings for sure. So just stay tuned, I guess, for that. And let me know if you have any questions. So we're going to go ahead and look at Basecamp here real quick for any of you who are still new to it, or maybe have been using it but haven't been using it to the extent that you can. So with Basecamp, we usually send you a link that you can click on to get to Basecamp, but maybe you only have clicked that link and got signed up and done nothing more. So if you want to use Basecamp to the extent that you really can, and I encourage you to, you can just Google up Basecamp and click the sign in to the right. And I'm going to type in my email address and hit next. And I'm going to type in my password. I'm going to log in. So it takes you to a place, if you have more than one Basecamp account, and I have several, it takes you to what's called the Basecamp Launchpad. And what I recommend that you do with whatever internet, I'm thinking of what's the word, interface.
Browser.
What's that?
Browser.
Browser, yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Whatever internet browser you use to save it. So I'm going to save this in my bookmarks bar. We'll just, well, maybe I actually, yeah, we'll do it right there. So done. So now I can access it easily. So you may want to consider that. So I'm going to go in. You're probably just going to, probably not going to have this many options, but I'm going to go into my OPRA one here. So I'm just going to X out of that right now. So you see how many different OPRA Basecamps we have already. We have DSP Ohio, we've got OPRA CSP Fast Track Work Group, the OPRA Day Services Work Group, the OPRA Employment Work Group, the OPRA NMT Work Group, the OPRA Remote Supports Work Group, and the OPRA Vocab Minimum Wage Work Group. So you may belong to just one of these or several of these. And so I'm going to go in, since we're in the employment meeting right now, I'm going to open up Employment Work Group. And you'll see you have 4 different modules here. We have the message board. So if you want to type in a message to someone, you can do it this way. You just click on the message board. It says new message. And I want to show you this part. So you type in your title, you type whatever you want, just kind of like Outlook. But when you go to send it, you can see down at the bottom it says, when I post this, these 116 people will be notified. So if you want everyone to see your email, you just go ahead and leave it like it is and say, post this message. Or if you, let's say I just want to send it just to Christine. So I'm going to go up here and click change. I'm going to hit select no one. And then I'm just going to click Christine, save changes, and this message would only go to Christine. So you can send it to as many or as few people as you want. And I'm going to go ahead and just save that as a draft for now, since I don't really want to email her since she's right here. Oh, I'm going to delete it. There we go. Okay, so I deleted that draft. So, and then if you want to go back and see what messages have been sent over the past week or month or however long, you can just click on that message board and start looking through all the different messages that came. Okay, so that's the messages. And let's go up here. Well, let's go up here. So you might see this little thing up here that says, hey, up on the right middle of the screen. It's got the little 1 on it. So those are some things that have come across Basecamp, any of my Basecamp groups that I haven't seen yet. So I'm going to click on that. And so it was telling me, I missed it when it popped up, but it was telling me that we had this meeting today and saying, hey, you have a meeting today. So once I click on that, that goes away as being unread. And then we also, next to that, we have pings. You can click on ping. So let's say I want to just have a little chat here with Christine. So I'm going to say, hi, Christine. So this is kind of like sending an email, but a little quicker. How
messaging.
Yeah, it's like instant messaging. I'm going to say, how are you doing? Whoops. And I'm still learning how to use this part too. And I don't know who that just went to.
Jessica asked, if we don't belong to a work group right now and we want to, how do we access that?
Just shoot me an email or call me, whatever, to call the office. Let me know, and we will send you the link to get signed up for it. Oh, I think I did this. Okay, so I'm sorry. So when you do this, first you sign up for it. So here, I want to send this ping to Christine. So I choose her name first. And now I'm going to say, how are you doing? Okay, so that just pinged that over to Christine. Now, depending on how she has her notifications set on, and we're going to show you how to do that, she may have that might have just popped up on her iPhone or a computer saying, hey, you got a ping from Lisa, or she might have her settings set so that she only gets an overview of everything that came through on Basecamp once a day. All right, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute too.
I've not gotten one yet, but I don't think I have it set up to send. I got it.
Okay, you might not have your notification set up. So there's all different ways you can do that. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. So if you want to set up your notifications to notify you more or less, you go to, on the right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a little picture. Right now it's a picture of me because this is my account. Whoops, I don't think you can see it on that screen. Can you scroll over at all, Christine? For some reason it's, oh, there, okay. Oh, we couldn't see it, but you could see it. So you might, if you put your picture in, it's going to be a picture of you. If not, it's just going to be your initials. I'm going to click that and see it says my notifications are on. And it says I have chosen to receive mobile notifications for everything between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. So, but you can change, see how you can change your notification settings? Oh, look, see, Christine just pinged me back saying she's doing great. So it's just that simple. But so you can do all your changes of notifications there in that section. I am going to go back to home here and go back into the employment work group. So we talked about the message board. Now we're going to talk about the schedule. So if you're ever like, hey, when is that meeting happening? When's the next employment meeting? You can click on the schedule. Like for today, you can see it says OPRA Employment First Meeting. And if you want to know how can I access this meeting remotely, or I want to drive there in person, where's it at? So you're just going to click on it and see, here's the notes, here's the speakers, the agenda, here's the remote access directions. So it's all there for you. So that's the schedule. And then the docs and files. So this is where you'll find everything that's been posted out there. Like here's different OOD proposed policies, different presenters we've had come in. You'll find their PowerPoints there, different curriculum you might want to use for your the people you're supporting in employment. Just all kinds of stuff there. You can go through there. We've got some quick tips. Like here's a quick tip we did, an OPRA quick tip, the day services training on different information you want to know. And so some of this is older, some of it's newer, but it's all there for you. We'll save it there for you. The email forwards, I'm sorry that's still on there. I'm going to get rid of that. That was just, I was experimenting with how to use Basecamp, and I will get rid of that though. Any questions on Basecamp? Let me make sure I think I covered all the topics. Does anybody have any questions on it? No, I think you'll like it if you haven't used it. I think you'll like it. It's pretty user friendly, I think. It took me a little while to figure out how to use it, but I really didn't have any. I used it for some other work groups that I'm on.
Yeah. I use it on my Google Pixel Android phone. It's been, the app on there download's been really nice. You can jump on and do things really easily too.
Yeah, and I use it on my iPhone. The app's really nice too. I like that you can access it anywhere you've got an internet connection. Just download the app.
Yeah. Well, you can just reply to the emails that come
Right,
through.
right. Yeah, you can keep it as simple as you want. If you just want to, because when somebody sends a message on Basecamp, it's going to go into your email, whatever email account you're using to sign up. So if you don't ever want to use Basecamp to this extent, you don't have to. But you're probably going to want to, if only just, I found that a lot of members, it seems like they like to look through those documents and stuff, and then they'll maybe have some questions. You can ask questions about those and stuff, and you can always access those at a future time. You don't have to email them and say, hey, what about that document from 6 months ago? Can you resend it? It's right there for you. And you can save documents on there too. If you run across some really good resource you think everybody would like, you can send a message saying, hey, I dropped in a new document on job development or whatever it is, and it'll be there for everyone. So it's a good way to share things with the rest of the group.
Yeah. I had one I meant to share last week. It was on Getty Images that they did they had a challenge for photographers to have how to include people with disabilities, and they had guidelines for how photographers could show inclusion and kind of best practices of how not to show stereotypes about people with disabilities. So I'll share that out today.
Yeah, do that. That's wonderful.
Give everyone some real life examples right now too.
Good, good. Yeah, that'd be a good resource to share. So do we have any questions or comments or concerns? All right, well, if not, then I will be sending out information on Basecamp for when our next meeting will be, the location of it, and how you can access it remotely also if you'd like to. And if you have any questions or if you want to get on Basecamp, and if you're not, just shoot me an email, give me a call. And yeah, we'll get you hooked up. So thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it. And
thank you very much. Yes, and we'll be back next month or so. You'll see the invites come out for us and when it's going to be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now, did we record?